This is Youth Marketing Academy, October 5th, Friday. It's almost weekend, guys. I'm Ghani Kunto, and with me is Graham Brown. We have an exciting show lined up for you today. We're talking about fans, specifically fandoms. All right, so let's get right into it. Hi, Graham. How are you doing?
Doing great, Ghani, and you?
Yeah, doing great also. So, we're in the midst of writing this book about fans. And when we think about fans, sometimes we think about the weird ones, which is, I guess, part of the culture. And now it's okay to be weird, right? And
Right.
looking at this finding about the biggest fandom out there, especially in the internet, it's quite interesting. The the big ones, I mean, the top ones are things like Star Wars, Harry Potter, Pokemon,
Twilight. Yeah.
Twilight, yeah. Star Trek, as people would expect, the Trekkies have been around for a while. But looking deeper into numbers is actually quite interesting. What's your take on this?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, especially if you're not a fan of any of these particular genres. And what I think we've learned is two things. Firstly, one, that the numbers of the sort of the more recent fandoms are quite astounding. And if you're sort of a generation that would remember Star Wars or Star Trek affectionately, you'd probably think they were big fandoms. But if you look at the numbers, just let's talk about Facebook likes for a minute, and we'll talk about Star Wars. There's 6 million Facebook likes, and Star Trek has about 1.5 million. Whereas the new fandoms, Harry Potter and Twilight, have 37 and 26 million respectively. So the newer fandoms are far better integrated into social media. And it may be partly to do with who they're targeted at, a younger audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second fact is probably more telling, and that is you can't really judge the quality of the fandom by the size of internet Facebook likes alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got to go beyond that, and there must be some other kind of factors that we can measure fandoms by, because anybody can like Harry Potter or Twilight on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a key point here because when brands think about fans and they think about, how do we find them or how do we create them sometimes, they measure it by, well, the easiest thing to measure, which is the Facebook likes. And of course, people end up gaming that, trying to get as many likes as possible. But that's not what it's about, right? We talked about in previous shows, I think, about one of the things that fans do is that, well, they invest in the brand. They take care of the brand, right?
There's a signaling cost, right?
Mm.
There's a certain cost associated with being part of the fandom, and that separates you from your average viewer or customer of the brand or product. And I think that the key cost here is that if you look at the numbers, the fan fiction, I think, is really interesting.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've read any of this stuff, Ghani, but fan fiction is for these sort of newer fandoms like Harry Potter, it's just staggering
Mm.
how many submissions there are. I don't know if you're familiar with any of this stuff or you've come across it.
Not Harry Potter. I know of Twilight fan fiction. Some of them got quite big. I mean, like the Shades of Grey became
Right.
its own franchise, right? I mean, it started off from a
Yeah.
fan fiction.
It was based on Twilight, and I think there's a lot of fan fiction stuff around. If you look at the numbers, apparently Harry Potter has, according to fanfiction.net, over 500,000 fan fiction submissions, and compare that to, say, Star Wars, 27,000. I think that's a real test of the devotion of these fans to the genre, and in many ways, it's an ability to take that genre forward. And we've seen with Star Wars the issues that have happened when fans have tried to actually take control of the narrative, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one side of it. I'm thinking about like looking at the numbers between the Harry Potter fan submission in terms of the fan fiction and the Twilight submissions. The fan fictions for Twilight
Yeah.
is 193,000, still a lot, but only about a fifth of what Harry Potter has. And I think maybe this has to do with the fact that Twilight is more people equate it with the actors in it also. Like so
Right.
Pattinson, and then they think, oh, how cute he is, and like they would have like Tim Edwards and like Tim. I don't even know. I think that one, right? But that's the thing. Right? When it becomes real, when it becomes more real than the story is, it becomes actually less attractive. I mean, like
Yeah.
Star Wars is happening somewhere out there, and Star Trek is happening somewhere out there. Harry Potter is full fantasy. Twilight is, well, it is fantasy about vampires that can go in the daylight and everything, but it's still based in, well, right now in the U.S. right now. So I think
Yeah.
that's one side of it too.
Whereas Harry Potter's that sort of more archetypal good versus evil,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's not the love story so much that Twilight seems to be eked out to be, right?
Mm-mm.
And there's some really interesting fan fictions in Harry Potter. There's some real, diverse sort of avenues that fans have taken it down, and that's what's really interesting because they've, the brand for them has become a canvas on which they can write their own story, paint their own pictures about what it's meant to be.
Yes.
And we've seen a lot of that in the other eras as well. I mean, even like Star Trek. There's some really interesting variations in Star Trek, like the gay Star Trek.
Mm.
And I mean, it's fascinating because it allows people to really take that brand and make it what they want, and it's very different from the idea of brand management, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the difference between having your story and making sure that everybody tells the same story, and letting people tell their own stories using your story as the base. And some stories are better as a base than others, I guess. I'm looking at what the fans are doing. Pokemon, actually, not a lot of people writing fan fictions for that. Well, 46,000 is still a lot, but not as many as Harry Potter's, right? But looking at the Deviant Art submissions, I mean, number of people who are actually creating pictures of Pokemon characters and putting them into different situations. Some of them adult situations. Some of them are just funny situations, making their own stories. But because it's more cartoon, they make it via a comic, right? And then 1.7 million submissions. And in some ways, I think drawing is much harder than writing, because it's it's not a lot of people can do it, but those who are doing it, I think they're doing it in much more intensively. I think that's really cool.
And also, it's a different format, isn't it? I think what we can learn from this as marketers is that you've got to allow fans to express themselves in different ways. There may not just be one way of doing it. You can't just measure fan fiction like the written word.
Yeah.
Because if that was the case, and you were Nintendo and your community was Pokemon, you would miss out on all the artwork.
Yes. Yeah.
And vice versa. If you were sort of Twilight, there's not much Twilight deviant art out there in comparison to Pokemon. There's only about 10,000 items.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think you have to know what the community likes and what it does, and to be able to go with that and be able to cater for whatever platform they feel most suited for. Your platform may be different to the next guy's.
Yes.
But the point is you have to sort of be in that community to know how they actually express themselves.
Yeah, exactly. All right, great. So rounding it up, a couple of the main points here. First of all, your fans are everywhere. They might be communicating with other fans in different ways that you're familiar with, and it's not about getting them on your platform. It's about discovering their platforms and finding out what that means. And also the fact that your brand story is really not the story that matters. It's the fan stories that matter, and the job for any brand, any product, is to become the platform for that storytelling, right? And the last one, I guess the first one that we made, which is about likes, Facebook likes. I mean, you have fans on Facebook, that doesn't really count because it doesn't cost anything to click on the like button. All right, great. So Graham, thanks a lot for the time.
Thanks, Ghani.
Okay. And that's it for today's show. Even though we said that having clicking on the like button doesn't really mean that much as a fan, but we don't mind it if you do. If you click on the like button here, we just hope that you're doing it intentionally with full sincerity. That you're saying that, hey, yeah, I really do like these guys. I want to spread their message to my network, and that's why I'm clicking the like button. And while you're at it, you could also subscribe or always follow us on youthmarketingacademy.com. And buy our books. I mean, there's too many things. Anyway, that's it for today. We'll see you on Monday. Yeah? This is Ghani Kunto with Youth Marketing Academy. Take care.